Comet Corps Major Amir slammed into the hull of the Poveen attack cruiser. The battle in space raged around him. Lightning-like arced energy fire from the Poveen Cruiser reached out to strike other Comet Corps soldiers or the rockets that barreled in towards them from Butcher Bay and the planet below. He detached from the upper unit of his combat kit and placed his orange mag boots on the hull of the metallic cruiser. The upper kit moved behind him on 4 legs with 2 massive point defense cannons ready to stop any Poveen countermeasures. More of his soldiers slammed into the hull all around him as the battle continued. About 100 meters north of him was an entrance made in the hull by one of the breaching rounds fired from the planet. Major Amir looked around him at the chaos taking place in space, and he wondered how he ended up in the ass end of humanity. Just a couple of months ago, he was in the Victory system protecting luxury spaceports. Now he was at the edge of human space, down the spiral arm, moving along the hull of an alien cruiser. At least he had a commander that knew what the hell he was doing, thought Amir. Humans had never defeated the Poveen in combat. Sure, the humans destroyed a cruiser or two and killed a couple of ground soldiers, but they never won an engagement. When the Poveen ER bridged into the system, he thought himself as good as dead. Now, he believed that they had a chance to survive the conflict. Well, that is only if he could make it back to the surface of the planet alive after his mission. A mission that included hanging onto a rocket, landing on an alien cruiser, and destroying it from the inside with a nuclear weapon. Sub-Commander Malcom Masters had taken control of the combined forces of the system as soon as the enemy entered it. Since that time, he made one tactical decision after another that led to victory. When Masters told Amir and his fire team to attach themselves to a rocket, he hesitated. He thought Masters was crazy, but his reasoning made sense. The Poveen cruisers in space fired on drop stars, troop stars, and breach stars at 100,000 kilometers from the cruiser, but they would wait until 25,000 kilometers to fire on a kinetic rocket. Masters theorized that the Poveen feared the kinetic-tipped warheads could hide in debris fields and sneak past point defense systems and hit the hull. At 25,000 kilometers, they could fire on the rocket and make sure they destroyed the kinetic warhead first. So at 26,000 kilometers, his forces released from the rockets and moved away from the projectile to prevent from being caught in the point defense energy weapons of the Poveen. Amir imagined the Poveen commander shitting a brick when thousands of Comet Corps soldiers jumped off the rocket. They were now too close to target both the Comet Corps soldiers and the rockets. They had to pick their poison. And they would have to choose the rockets that burned at high speed towards the cruiser. That all took place moments ago, and Amir still couldn't believe that it had worked. As he raced toward the breach in the alien hull, he couldn't help but think of the poor souls that disobeyed orders and traveled to the alien cruisers with the breach stars and drop stars instead of the attached to the rockets. They were gunned down on approach, and almost none of them made it to the enemy cruisers. Major Amir had only lost 2 soldiers on approach when they had been struck by debris. All around Amir, his soldiers rallied to his positions. With precision, they formed up into fire teams and maneuvered either to protect the insertion port or into the alien cruiser. Poveen are physically much larger than humans, making it easy for the heavily equipped soldiers to maneuver in the hallways. 3 Comet Corps soldiers could fit shoulder to shoulder in the hallway, but they moved tactically with proper spacing to ensure that one shot or explosion couldn't injure them all. Amir took a large circular shield from his back and readied his hand cannon. He wasn't the first one to breach the enemy cruiser, but he would be damned if he wasn't going to kill at least one Poveen. The Poveen cruisers were all powered by a controlled singularity drive. The controlled singularity drive was housed in a massive sphere, usually located at the rear of the starship. If the sphere was breached, the singularity would collapse in on itself and usually destroy the vessel. This is no different than breaching containment on antimatter or a nuclear drive system starships. The only difference is that instead of an explosion, it produced a sudden gravity wave of over 100 gravities. Amir moved along the corridor with 6 soldiers in front of him and 3 behind. They passed dead Comet Corps soldiers and damaged Poveen drones. The Poveen drones were white metallic spheres with 4 tentacles that protruded from the rear to help the drones maneuver in zero-G environments. When the group of soldiers turned the corner, they found a group of Comet Corps soldiers engaged in battle with an unknown number of drones. Arced energy blasts shot out from the circular gold balls at the front of the spears and rippled into one of the shoulders after another. Comets fired back with hand cannons or projectile fire bullpup rifles. Rounds bounced off the bulkheads or punched massive holes, depending on the ordnance of the weapon. Amir moved like a wild man to the front of the formation, with his shield taking the brunt of the energy weapon fire. The CCES Mark II shield was perfectly suited for combat against the Poveen. The shield was designed to absorb energy and transfer it into a hard energy force field. It was originally developed to save Special Forces soldiers from nuclear blasts. Amir received it when he served in the Special Forces unit of his home system, United Kingdom. When he was promoted into the Comet Corps, he demanded it come with him. The hard energy force field produced by the shield provided support to wounded soldiers pinned down in the hallway. Amir pressed the attack in the enemy drones. The shield buckled and flickered under the intense fire, but it held. The Major fired into the mass of the enemy drones with his hand cannon. The powerful weapon bucked every time it fired the massive 75 caliber rounds. The insides of the drones hit the ground with the bulkhead behind them. Amir pressed forward toward the power plant of the alien cruiser. By that point, more Comet Corps soldiers had poured into the alien cruiser. They moved along toward all the major systems of the alien cruisers. Weapons, navigations, and crew compartments were all targeted by the invaders. Poveen drones fell en masse across the cruiser as Amir's fire teams approached the outer bulkhead of the controlled singularity containment sphere. 3 soldiers placed tactical nukes and set the timer for 5 minutes. Once in place, Amir ordered all Comet Corps soldiers to make a strategic withdrawal out of the cruiser. More nuclear weapons were placed around the cruiser in various departments, slaved to the timer of the nukes attached to the drive system. Nuke riding, or November Romeo, was taught to all Comet Corps soldiers. If they left the hull of the cruiser too soon before the nuclear weapon exploded, the enemy could gun them down with point defense weapons as they retreated. They had to wait until the nukes exploded before they could leave the hull. At that time, they would have to burn as fast as they could to get away from the hull of the craft and not get caught in the shockwave and debris. Amir reached the hull of the cruiser and mated with his upper part of his kit. When the countdown timer reached 10 seconds, the Major ordered his team to push off. The Comet Corps soldiers burned away from the hull of the cruiser into space. At first, they saw a brilliant light that pushed debris and other materials into space at high speed. Then the gravity implosion pulled most of the debris back into the hull of the cruiser as it collapsed in upon itself for a brief 5 seconds. The enemy cruiser was destroyed. Amir left the surface of the planet with 250 soldiers. 175 pinged him for new orders after the assault. The battle was not over yet. The Poveen entered the system with 18 cruisers and 2 troop transports. 4 cruisers were destroyed by the Comet Corps soldiers' assault. That same force currently operated on 3 other cruisers. Forces from the 12th Stellar Group ER bridged into the system moments after November Romeo. The battle for Butcher Bay was about to get interesting.